Okay, 41 people ready so far. Let's wait for 10 more seconds and we'll get started. If you haven't managed to scan this QR code, and you will be throughout the presentation, whenever we'll have a poll and we'll use this across the presentation, you'll see the link in the upper part of the page. So you'll still be able to access it. And please do not turn your phones or exit that page after we finish with some questions. We'll still have questions until the end of this talk. Okay, 47 people ready. I'll say we'll get started. And like I've said, if some of you are still joining, you can use the upper link. Okay, 50%, let's go. First question for you is, what's your occupation? Data scientist, automation engineer, machine learning engineer, DBA. Okay, various backgrounds, various occupations. I see, of course, since we're talking about the data conference, lots of people working with data, which is great. This whole talk will be data-centric, let's say, but it will be helpful also for managers, for iOS engineers, basically for anyone who has to create any kind of chart at any point. Now, whenever you try to create a visualization, a chart, a dashboard, an infographic, whatever, you have to keep in mind two key questions. What are you trying to say? That's the most important one. Without knowing what you want to say, you don't really say anything. And the second one is, who is your audience? Now, the second one is really, really important, because knowing your audience really helps you a lot. And I don't know if you've seen this in Bucharest, or this campaign from Rome. It's saying, hello, Bruce, how was your flight? Kind reminder for tonight, it's hello, Bucharest, not Budapest. Well, it all started in 1990, when Michael Jackson started this trend by saying, hello, Budapest, in front of Bucharest inhabitants. Well, if you're Michael Jackson, you might get over with it, but otherwise, just keep in mind that knowing your audience is really important. And actually, that mistake kept happening. In 1995, Iron Maiden made the same mistake. Therefore, this message for Bruce when Iron Maiden came back to Bucharest. Morcheeba, Lenny Kravitz, Metallica, Ozzy Osbourne, Whitesnake, and others didn't consult Wikipedia before coming to Bucharest and continued this trend of saying, hello, Budapest. And actually, the infamous confusion reached its peak and started making collateral victims in 2012, when no less than 400 Athletic Bilbao fans missed the Europe League final after mistakenly flying to Budapest instead of Bucharest. So always try to know who is your audience. And from these two questions, there are many other questions that might derive. What questions does that audience have? What answers can you find for them? What other questions does it inspire? And what conversations will result? You should always start with these questions before digging into building an actual visualization. Now, this is just the first part, right? Afterwards, you have to use the correct chart for building your visualization. And the key point is that your viewers should take something away from the time they spend with your visualization. Now, I have another question for you. You can look at this chart. It's actually from the Big Data Week materials from last year. Just like I did here, they've asked what was your occupation, and they did a nice chart with this data. Do you think this chart is used correctly or not? And let me explain you the options. Yes means yes, the chart is used correctly, 100% correctly. Yes, but not optimal means you can use such a chart for showing this data, but it's not the best way of doing it. And no is if this chart doesn't fit at all for this scenario. Again, I'll leave you about 30 seconds to answer this. Ten seconds left. Okay, let's see what you've answered. So most of you have answered that yes, but not optimal, and you're still answering right now. That's the correct answer, actually. It is used correctly, but it's not optimal. Why it's not optimal? We have too many values for a donut chart, which is actually a pie chart with a hole in the middle. We have too many values for it to be represented correctly and to be easily understood by people. I always say that for a pie chart, you should use a pie chart only if you have a maximum of 5 different categories. Otherwise, it gets hard to read, and you always have to go forth and back towards the legend to understand what each slice means. Moreover, when you have values that are really close, it's hard to compare them, but of course you have the labels helping you in doing that. Next question, is this chart used correctly? Here we can see why people keep dogs in China. It's a chart from CNN, and they basically did a survey asking people why do they keep dogs. Now, the question is regarding how the data is represented, not the data itself, because you'll see there that 5.3% of people said that they keep dogs to catch mice, which is a little bit odd. They should have thought about a cat instead of a dog. And I would say it's wrong on so many levels, saying for 8.2% of the people who said they keep them to eat. Okay, let's see your answers. So 53% of you have said yes, 38% no. I'll ask you to take another look at this chart and see that one of the slices is 93.6%. Next one is 45.1. From these two values only, I have one over 100%. And it's a really bad idea to use a pie chart or a donut chart in this case for showing something that it doesn't represent a part to whole relationship. So whenever you use a visualization like this, if you use it only if the total of the values is 100%. Otherwise, it doesn't make any kind of sense. So the correct answer is no, definitely not. It's not used correctly in any way. And I want to talk to you a little bit about part to whole relationships. So let's think we want to show the world population by region. And I have this pie chart. I can see the region on the right. Like I've said, it's always a matter of switching back and forth towards the legend to understand what each data point means. Moreover, if I'm looking at Africa versus the Americas, I don't know which slice is bigger. I could assume that whoever designed this put them in order, so Africa is bigger than the Americas, but it's an assumption, and I don't want to make assumptions when I'm making decisions. Of course, you might say, okay, I'll add some labels on it, and I will say it this way. Again, we're talking about so many values here. It's 6, but still there are too many values for a pie chart. And moreover, the Oceania part, which is really small, 0.5%, you can't even see it. Now, a reinterpretation of this, and it started to be more and more used, is the tree map. Again, it has the same limitations. Maybe it will use less space. Maybe you'll have more space for the labels at one point, but still, it's not the best way of doing things, of showing this type of data. And another example is a stacked bar chart, let's say a horizontal stacked bar chart, which is a tree map stretched, again, same issues. Now, what would be the best solution here? Well, I could use a simple bar chart for it. Now the entire data is really straightforward. I can easily compare regions between them. I can see what each region is and what's the value without having to go back and forth to the legend. And it occupies actually a little bit less space, which is essential when you're building dashboards and you want to integrate as much information as you want. And now, since I'm using a bar chart, the color doesn't make any sense. And I can remove the color and put it in a gray color, such that people are really looking at the data, not the colors, and they don't get distracted by it. And I've also added a small label saying % of total by region, because that's one of the limitations with this chart. It doesn't give you a sense of part-to-whole relationship from the start. But as soon as you read the label, you understand it. Now, I'll give you another example and I'll ask you if this chart is used correctly. This time I have a half pie chart and I only have 2 values on it. Do you think it is used correctly? Yes, but not optimal, or no? Five seconds left. Okay, let's see the answers. Okay, so pretty tied between the options. Okay, so some of you say yes, some of you say yes, but not optimal. Some of you say no. Let's see, the right answer is yes. For this case, it's a good way of representing the data. It might not be the best way, indeed, but it is the right way to use a pie chart, or a half pie chart in this case, and it actually makes sense because you occupy less space on the screen with this interpretation. Now, you can represent this differently, though, and it might make even more sense. You can represent it like this. What you'll see here compared to the half pie chart is that you can determine if we're just between around 74 and 76%. We'll know which segment is bigger between these parts, because it's really easier to understand the data. So this is just another example of how you might want to show this data, and I would actually recommend it against the half pie chart. So my key point here, and I've always said that, is you should try to avoid using pie charts or donut charts or any other tasty charts, because bars or protein bars are usually better. Now, I would have said bars, but now we have this COVID situation, so I would recommend not going that much into bars. Now, next question, is this chart used correctly? This is a screenshot from an iOS marketing campaign. They were showing how they can tell you how are you spending your money over time in each of the days and the total. Is this chart used correctly? Five seconds left. Okay, let's see your answers. Again, really tied between the options. The correct answer is yes, but not optimal. The thing that is not correct in this chart is the fact that they've used these gradients for colors. I can't really understand where the orange starts, ends, and when the blue starts for Tuesday, and it goes the same for the other data points. And it gives you a little bit of confusion, which is not good when you're talking about data. You don't want to be confused. We have all this data. We have to use it properly. Is this chart used correctly? By the way, I haven't told you this, but it's better to look at the screen for the chart and just use your phone for answering. Even though you see the picture on your phone as well, it might be too small to read it. Five seconds left. Okay, I really like this answer, and it's the correct answer. So 72, 73% of you, 71 now, answered correctly to this question. I really like that. So this is a line chart on the left. And line charts should only be used if we're talking about trends in time. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to connect those data points, as they aren't really connected in any way. And whenever you look as an individual to a line chart, your brain immediately thinks it's a trend. And I want to talk a little bit more about trends in time. Let's say we look at the tourist income by region. We do it through a line chart. I can see the evolution of this income from 2000 to 2012. I can see each region independently, and that I can see if it has increased or not in terms of income and what the overall trend is. And it's a really, really powerful chart. I would definitely recommend you to use line charts whenever you think about trends in time. However, this specific case has a limitation. I can understand each individual region, how it went over time. But if I'm thinking about the total, okay, what's the total income for across the world throughout time? If I'm looking at 2012 compared to 2011, so the last two data points on the right, I can see that Europe has decreased, Asia and the Americas have increased, and Africa was quite steady. I can't know, okay, did the overall tourist income worldwide in 2012 increase compared to 2011 or not? And this is the limitation that the line chart has when you use it this way. You can overcome that limitation by using a stacked bar chart. You're overcoming that limitation, but you're triggering another one. See here, 2012 appears quite clearly over 2011 in terms of total tourist income worldwide. However, if I want to compare two data points that are in the middle, like the orange sections for the Americas, it's really hard to compare them and to see if they've changed from one year to another. So this is a bigger limitation that the previous line chart had. But again, it really matters what you're trying to say. So coming back to that first question that you have to put. And the reinterpretation of this is the area chart, on which it's a little bit easier to see those differences for the middle values, because the angle helps you do that. However, you need to look really careful and to spend a lot of time to understand those differences. One way to show this data is using a line chart with total. What I did here was using a dual axis. So I've added an axis on the right with gray and the value with gray for total. This way I'll have all the information in one glance, and I can even see how the change of one region influenced the total. So it might work for your scenario. Again, I'm not saying that these would work for any scenarios, but keep in mind, what are you trying to emphasize? And choose your chart appropriately. For comparisons and ranking, things are pretty easy. I would say we should always use bar charts for this. So whenever we want to compare the values for by region or by country or whatever data points you might have, you have a metric and you have a dimension, you want to compare those, bar charts do the trick here. I wouldn't recommend looking into other options. So always use bar charts for comparisons and ranking. Now, it might be that you need to compare to a target, a prediction, or previous period. And then there's this chart invented by Stephen Few, which is called the bullet chart. It's really, really powerful, and I think it's not used enough nowadays. You can easily see what the actual value is. It's represented by the bar chart, and what the target is, or what the previous year was, right? So I can see that through that line there. And I can color code this with two colors to say, okay, am I above that value or below that value? And from start, I look at this chart and I know that two people didn't do that well in terms of sales. They were below quota. Now, actually, the bullet chart is a little bit more complicated than that, or can be more complicated. That was a pretty easy example, and I would definitely recommend you to use that. The original bullet chart designed by Stephen Few looks like this, and it encodes a background with values in terms of, is it bad, is it good, is it excellent? So you can encode those values, but do that carefully and make sure you somehow explain that to your users. And I would do that only for advanced users of your chart. And the nice thing about bullet charts in general is that you can group a lot of them in a small space. And they can give you a really quick glance into, am I doing good or not? So bullet charts are useful when you want to compare a metric against a target prediction or to a different time frame. It's a really, really powerful chart.
Victor,
if we're talking,
sorry to interrupt. You got just 2 more minutes.
Okay. I'll quickly go throughout two more things. Actually, is it okay if we leave 5 minutes for the questions and 5 more minutes for the presentation?
I don't know. Probably we can do it together.
Okay, we can do those together. So just quick through correlations is when you want to show the influence of one variable to another. And you can do that through scatter plots. I won't go into deeper details with this chart though. And you can easily see the trend. And actually, I won't go through all these types of charts because it's something that you can learn really easily using other materials. And I'll actually come back with the slides for this. But I want to go through some deeper insights about data in general. And I have one question for you. How many times does 5 appear in this string? Okay, I know it's pretty hard to find those 5s. Let's see the answers. Okay, so you're all over the place with the answers. Let me try and help you. Please try again. How many times does 5 appear in the string? Much more easier this time, right? So the correct answer is 6. What I did there was using a trick. It's called pre-attentive processing. It involves your brain without you even knowing it. So what it does, it triggers a reaction in your brain before you even realize it. And you can use this trick in your favor by emphasizing the most important data. And there are some pre-attentive attributes that you can use. This is their entire list. As you can see, there are lots of options. And each of these, in which of these, you'll see a specific data point that strikes out, right? It's different than the others. However, keep in mind that not all of these are quantitative. What I say by that is not all of them can be measured. Like, for example, color, if I'm looking at red versus black, I can say how much better is red or how much worse is compared to black. So only length and position are quantitative. And some others, the ones with yellow, are quantitative but limited. And I'll show you why by giving you an example with size. Because, okay, if I'm looking at size at right upper example, I would say, okay, but I can say how much bigger is that circle compared to the other. And actually, this is my question to you. How much bigger is the second circle compared to the first one?
Victor, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but we need to wrap it up.
Yeah, just this question and we'll wrap it up. Thank you. Okay, let's hear answers. So 31%, 32% have said 16 times bigger. Let's see the correct answer. It's 16 times bigger than the first one, the second circle compared to the first one. What people do is tend to underestimate differences in 2D areas. And this is just an example why size it is quantitative, but it's limited. So you have limited capability in doing that. And with that, I'll end my session and ask you if you have any kind of questions.
There's one question for you. It would be, what's the one most important aspect we need to look out for in our dashboards?
I would say to keep it simple and smart. What that means is not to try to overload it with information. Another thing is that you don't want to show everything in the same dashboard or at a glance. You might want to break down things, so break them up into multiple charts, use interactivity for it. I would definitely recommend to use interactivity for any kind of dashboard. That way people can interact with that and they can better understand and dive deeper into the data.
Okay, Victor, thank you very much. It was a very interesting talk. So guys, we'll take a short break. We'll be back here in the tech track in about 15 minutes. So again, if you'd like to take your time to visit the Digital Expo area and find out what our partners have prepared for you, you're going to find all sorts of surprises. You're going to find their case studies, white papers. You're going to find infographics, guides, some videos, games, and so much more. And they're only one click away. So please bear in mind that each session is broadcasted individually. So you're going to have to make sure yourselves that you click on the live sessions tab when returning. And we'll see you back here after the break.
One more thing from me, make sure you check out the Cognizant Salvision stand as well. You'll have a quiz there. It might be similar to this one, but related to data in general and moreover SQL. Thanks a lot for joining this session.